Hi, everybody. I am Allison here on behalf of Flashlight Press, and I'm joined with author Karen Kaufman Orloff and illustrator Renee Andriani, who have both come out with the new Flashlight Press titled Dudley's Day at Home. It deals with the boy Sam, who goes out one day with his mother and wonders what his dog Dudley does at home all day. Of course, mom says he does the usual dog things like digging in the yard and playing with the cat next door. But Sam lets his imagination run wild, and Dudley is doing anything but ordinary things at home.
Hi, I'm Karen Kaufman Orloff, and I'm so happy to be here, by the way. Thank you so much. I've always wanted to be a writer. Ever since I was a little girl, I was reading lots of books, always wanted to write, but I didn't really get to this kind of writing until I became a mom many, many years later, and started reading books to my kids. And that's how I got interested in writing for children. And it took me many years until I finally got my first book published. But that's kind of how I started.
Well, you've written a lot of others, not just for children. So Dudley is your 12th.
I Wanna Iguana was my first book, which was a funny book. And I love humor. So that's what I loved writing Dudley, because that was really fun to write, especially with the great illustrations by Renee. But I've written some sweeter stories too for children. So it's kind of whatever hits me, whatever I'm inspired to write.
And Renee, you graduated from the Rhode Island School of Design and you did greeting cards and children's illustrations, but do you have a certain maybe theme that you work with?
Definitely got a genre, which would be kids and humor. Same as Karen, it's sort of my wheelhouse. Great minds think alike, right? Yeah, when I was a kid, loved Mad Magazine. I think copying the artists was a big influence and helped me learn how to draw. And when my dad would bring home all of the stacks of old office papers from his job, and I would draw on the backs of paper, of junk paper, when I was a kid. And that just sort of naturally led to wanting to go to art school. So I did do that to become an illustrator. And then from there, got hired by Hallmark and relocated from Connecticut to Kansas City, Missouri, where they're headquartered, and worked for them for a number of years. But at the same time was also, had the good fortune to be able to illustrate books and do things for kids on the side. And that's kind of what led me to working with Flashlight Press and with you guys. Dudley was huge fun to work on.
Well, you both have dogs, or have had dogs in the past. Do you kind of find it that you would wonder the same kind of things as Sam did, and then think about what the dogs were doing at home, and then kind of take inspiration from that as well?
Yeah, I think that's what inspired me to write the story. We had our dog Bailey, who passed away a few years ago. I'll show you her picture. Here you go. There she is.
Oh,
very cute. She was adorable. And but she was like a human, she was so not a dog. She was a person. So I always used to think, wonder what she's doing, wonder what is she thinking about? And that's always how stories come about. It's always from real life, things that you think about, things that you do, hear about. It's always inspired by your own life. And that's how, it happened for me. I don't know about Renee with your dogs.
got a whole pack at home.
We have a herd. We call it the herd. I call it the herd. We had 3 dogs. We started with 2, and then we fostered one, and she was so great we had to keep her. And then my daughter moved back home from college and brought her giant Great Pyrenees puppy with her. Ooh. So we have a lot of big dogs in this house. And I would, if it wouldn't cause utter chaos, I would bring him in the room to say hello.
Drawing Dudley, did you take any inspiration from your dogs, or was Dudley his own character?
Dudley is kind of a composite of all of our dogs. We don't his physical appearance. We just wanted to create a dog. Originally, when I first drew Dudley, he was brown, and then we decided that. As we were going through the book, and it was a really great process. We're working really closely with Sherry Dash-Greenspan, the editor and art director, who did a terrific job of sort of guiding the visual look of the book and how the characters were going to look and appear. And we decided that it would be a little more fun to have him be a white dog, and he would just pop a little more off the page that way. And so Dudley's just, he doesn't physically look like any of my dogs, but his energy and his expression and everything is kind of drawn from what I live with.
Did it take you a long time to come up with the illustration idea of Dudley and what he would look like?
That's a good question. A lot of it's intuitive, I think. Like, for example, I seldom draw like a shaggy dog, like a sheepdog, because you can't see their eyes. And eyes are so much a part of a character's expression. And so you really want to have those eyes out there. And I gave him floppy ears because sometimes even ears can be expressive if they're flapping out to the sides when he's excited, or they're down low when he's sad about something. So all of those little things. When I was working up the sketches for Dudley, I was just kind of thinking, well, what can I do to make him have these features that I can really work with and use to give him all his expressions that he has throughout the book.
Did it influence you at all in terms of drawing for a certain age group? Did you find yourself making specific artistic choices for a younger group as opposed to, the 8-year-olds and up?
With a book like this that can be so appealing, Karen did such a great job of writing the book in a way that would make it really entertaining for younger kids and older kids. I sure enjoyed it as an adult. But just creating illustrations and doing them in a way that even a little kid can pick up on all these things and an older kid can appreciate them too. So it was kind of fun to be able to do drawings that had a lot of detail in them, but at the same time weren't too involved or complex so that a younger kid couldn't enjoy them. But
Renee's illustrations were so wonderful that sometimes when we don't work together. I write the story and the illustrator does his or her thing. And she added so much humor to it that I didn't come up with. I had the basic ideas, and she really took it to another level, which is really important for the collaboration between an author and illustrator. Even though we don't work together, we each add our own to the story. So she added a lot of great humor, which I love.
Do you find when you're writing children's books, obviously if you're writing to a younger crowd, but when it came to kind of being able to give all of that humor that Dudley has, did you find yourself making any specific choices in terms of the way you explain things, or even just the situations that were kind of more for a younger crowd or an older crowd?
Yeah, I mean, because I knew this was a picture book for little kids, I wanted them to understand certain things. And if you notice, the text is very, very simple. Mom will say, well, he eats. And my thought was that he's, cooking up the storm in the kitchen. So you really have to think about how a younger kid they would find that funny. Certain things maybe are over the head of a younger kid. You really have to think about that as a writer. But when you write picture books, it's interesting because they're usually read by a parent or a teacher. You don't necessarily have to be that simplistic in your words. I mean, you do if you're writing, say, easy readers, because the kids are reading it themselves. But with a picture book, you can be a little more creative and use some, maybe older, quote unquote, words, because they will be shown in the pictures or they'll be explained by the parent. You don't want to be too mature, but you want them to still get the humor, but you're also writing for the parent who's reading it. So you want them to appreciate the humor.
Piggybacking on what Karen's saying, same with the artwork. You can add a lot of nuance and stuff that you think a younger kid might not appreciate, but they do. They do tend to always enjoy picking up on little details and if putting a lot of different elements into an illustration, and a younger kid is definitely gonna pick up on that and kind of it's gonna really I think, enhance their enjoyment of going through the story.
Yeah.
When you're writing, do you write for a specific audience?
Well, picture books, you're always thinking, I think the sweet spot in picture books is like first and second grade. So that would be around 6 and 7 to me, because I tend to write books that are a little better for elementary age, you know, the humor and all of that. Some of my books appeal to 3 and 4-year-olds, but I do tend to write to that age, and I love that age. When I go to schools, that's like the best of the best, because they are just so, you know, they get everything.
Do you enjoy doing the school visits?
Yeah, it's fantastic, because for writers who we write alone. We're in our little rooms writing alone, and you don't see your audience, you know. So when I go to schools, I could see what works and maybe what doesn't work and how they react, and it's fantastic. And they treat you so. You come into these schools, they treat you like you're a queen. It's so wonderful. They're so appreciative and so cute, and I just love them. I love going to schools. It's so fun. They love being read to. I think teachers will tell you that the kids, even older kids, love being read to.
What about your family? What do they think about your books?
They're very supportive. When I was first starting to write, my kids were much younger. You know, you would think that they would be all over it. They probably couldn't care less. That's what mommy did, you know, whatever. But they were very excited for me when I got my first book accepted by Putnam, and they were just thrilled. And you know, and my husband's so supportive and so wonderful, and he loves me doing this. And you know, because it's a tough road. It's, you know, you don't always, you get a lot of rejections, and you don't always find success, and it's tough.
Kind of the same experience. My kids I have 3 kids, on top of 4 dogs. And I think it's something that's always been a part of their growing up, is mom sitting there working on a computer or working on drawings. And so I think, you know, there's not a whole lot of glamour in our house around it. It's just what they do. And my husband's an artist as well, so they're really accustomed to seeing just stuff being created. And oh yeah, it's always great, you know, especially if a box shows up with the first copies of a book. You know, like when my big box of Dudleys arrived, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And same experience as Karen with school visits, which I'll do too. And I love, the questions are so much fun, and I can do live drawing for them in front of a group, and that seems to always really capture everyone's interest. And so yeah, you know, it can be, it's hard work, and like Karen said, you know, you get rejection, there's disappointment, but there's also a lot of fun with it too. And my family and people around me, you know, they do appreciate it.
What's the process like for you when you're illustrating?
Illustrating. Okay.
Since I work digitally most of the time, I'm pretty portable. So I can take my tablet and my laptop with me, and I can work kind of wherever. Sometimes I feel like putting on my PJs and getting in bed and working there. But if there is a time where I need to be spread out with paint and paper and things like that, I do have a space in my basement too. Which is a huge mess, but kind of go all over.
Okay. How about you, Karen? Do you have a specific process, or are you kind of free-flowing?
Honestly, it's very similar. Nowadays that we have laptops, we did not, when I was starting, we did not. I think we didn't even have computers when I was first starting. I was writing, you know, pen and pencil, pen and paper. But I usually write like on my kitchen counter, but I'll bring the computer outside if it's a nice day. I've taken my computer to parks and we'll sit there and write, you know, my stories in a park, kind of wherever. And it's also whenever it hits me. Like, I'm not one of those writers who say, I'm going to write from 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. You know, I don't do that. It's kind of whenever I feel like it. And if I'm working on a story, I'll write all day long. I'll be writing, you know, I'll be working on it all day. I have to say, some books come very quickly. You know, I can write them in a couple of weeks, and then the revisions, maybe another few weeks. And sometimes literally it'll sit in my file for years until I get to it again and finish it. Dudley was kind of a real work in progress in the sense that years ago I had the idea and I put it into my idea file. And so it took me almost like years to kind of come up with the finished manuscript, even though it's a very simple manuscript, you know.
What do you find makes a good story? Like, what's the difference between a a manuscript that will sit in your pile for years versus one that you'll kind of be able to get out?
Yeah, I mean, I really think the combination of humor and heart are the two things that make a successful book. When you have that combination, like the end of Dudley has a lot of heart to it.
Renee, do you find that there's a certain type of illustration that you do that goes better than others, or?
That's something that I always kind of struggle with a little bit. When I'm doing something that's supposed to be quick and spontaneous, like a greeting card, you want it to look like it was just kind of dashed off in a couple of minutes. But with Dudley, there's a little more depth visually to the illustrations, the modeling and the color and everything, the environments. Want to create that sense of story and place for the person reading the book. So yeah, I do. I really do kind of run the gamut. From doing quick little cartoons to ones that are more involved, that have a lot of detail and environment. It depends on what's being called for. And usually with storybooks, you do want that. You do want a lot of detail and a lot of fun things to look at on each of the pages.
Do you guys have any specific habits or rituals maybe when you're sitting down to work?
I tend to have a very short attention span. So I might write something and then I get a little stuck, and then I have to either get up and walk around or go check my email or, watch something on TV or do something, and then I'll come back to it with a fresh mind. I don't know if that's a quirk or whatever, but that's kind of how I do it. It's hard for me to sit for, 8 hours writing.
How about you, Renee?
Probably the weirdest thing about the way I work is that I'm a night owl. Big time. I will work sometimes until 3 o'clock in the morning. And it's just always the way I've been. My brain just tends to function a little more, and I get a little more energized at night. It's really, I wish Karen said I dash around and do different things. I sort of multitask during the day, and then at night I really get down to it.
Any other books that you're working on, or things that you're up to now that we are sort of on this endless holiday, unfortunately due to Corona? Yeah. You find yourself more or less creative, kind of stuck in the house?
Yeah, I started out in the very beginning of this whole thing. I wasn't doing anything. I really wasn't writing. I couldn't get my mind on it. And then I started writing. I'm working on a novel for adults. I recently finished a young adult novel, which I would love to get published. I'm working on that. So I'm sort of writing for older children as well and for adults. And I'm kind of in that head right now. But if I get an idea for a children's book, I'll go right back to that.
Oh, cool.
Back and forth.
Yeah, switching a lot of gears. I'm working on another dog book.
Oh, great.
It's a really neat story. It's called A Home for Hope, and it's being put out by MV Publishing. And it's a story about a dog that gets rescued and ends up looking for a family. And I won't divulge any other bits of the plot, but it's been hugely fun to work on. I never get tired of drawing dogs. When I'm not working on books or doing artwork, I just bought some new power tools, and I'm going to teach myself how to repair our fence.
That's very impressive, Renee.
Well, I'm going to try to hang on to all my fingers.
Please do. You need to draw.
Yes, you need those. So, yeah.
Keep my drawing hand intact.
Yeah. Due to the circumstances, neither of you are going out and about doing school visits, which is a bit sad. But we do have a reading of Dudley available on our YouTube channel that everybody can check out and go see and get a taste of that, and available for order online.
It's always fun seeing you, and it's so nice to see Renee, and it's nice.
Thanks for getting together in our new normal.
Yep.
And,
Thank you so much.
Bye.